Robin Hood 2018 Thoughts film. Greetings and welcome. The month of Christmas has begun. I'm kidding. I know Christmas starts before December. October, maybe September. This movie is incredibly entertaining and terrible in so many ways, and those two things are connected. So, to get the following out of the way, this video will contain spoilers, including for this and other versions of Robin Hood, the 1938, 1991, and 2010 versions. And while the video is long, there are time codes for the different sections in the description box. And I've done videos on other versions of the story. Again, 38, 91, 10. And the link to the playlist will be in the description box. And since I've made other videos on, actually this film in particular and Robin Hood in general, I'm going to try not to restate what I said in those other videos. And that brings us to notes taken while watching. And we start with a sort of comic book like intro. I should say, as far as I could tell, the movie is around 45 minutes without end credits. I did not stay through the end credits, and according to Wikipedia, it doesn't mention a post-credits scene, and I'm almost certain there was nothing in trivia that was spoiler. Anyway, so yeah. And Tim Minchin narrates very briefly at the start here. Did he, again, at the very end? I forget. And, Robin catches a horse thief, and it turns out to be Marion. And, as Tim Minchin puts it, young love until the cold hand of a Hollywood executive. I mean fate. And I don't mind when characters make out in movies or, in general, physical expressions of love. I don't tend to mind that. But I swear, it can't actually have been very long, but it felt like they were kissing for a frickin' eternity. It cuts between them and then other stuff that's, I don't know, it felt like it took forever. And I don't think that was the point. I think the idea was that it should seem like they didn't have enough time. I don't know, maybe the idea is they were kissing forever. I kind of got the sense that, okay, can we move on, rather than, I'll let them keep kissing forever. The rest of the movie will wait. And, Robin is drafted for the military, for the third crusade. Rounding out the trilogy, the second one left a lot of unanswered questions. And just briefly, just before watching this, I watched the Midnight Screenings episode on the film and the Folding Ideas vlog, Zero Dark Loxley. So I'm going to try not to restate what they say. They make a lot of really great points. But I do have to just briefly, the machine gun, they're pinned down by machine gun fire, and it's, is it called a ballista? I feel like that's what it's called in Age of Empires 2, and that's where I would know something like that from. Yeah, that is unreal. They actually, day after day, showed up to set. Day after day, the guys, doing the effects, sitting there at their computers, and just, I mean, how do you manage to keep from just stopping and saying, you know what, this is beyond preposterous. This is not, Dan Olson in the folding idea in the vlog says, like, there's stylization, which I can appreciate, and then there's just this nonsense that it becomes. And he points out that the most far out idea is, Will trying to turn 1191 Nottingham into a democratic. Yeah, that truly is. Yeah, but just how do you? I can only imagine that every so often, whether on set or at their computer, working on the machine gun ballista, every so often they got out a little spinning top and set it, and just to see, okay, it fell over. That means that the laws of physics have not ceased to work, and I have not, in fact, lost my mind. Because how do you look yourself in the mirror in the morning and say, today I'm gonna work on a scene where a ballista has the effect of a machine gun. It's a machine gun nest. Again, as the others said, and I swear I took these notes before. I watched the movie while taking these notes. I should probably have put those to the other order. I took the notes as I was watching the movie, and then after watching the movie and getting back, I watched the videos. So, yeah, and I haven't done anything to my notes since then. But yeah, it feels like a Middle Eastern war, film scene. And the bit where, like, okay, they get past the machine gun, and he's going the hallways, and he's got the bow and arrow. I got a real Full Metal Jacket vibe there. That was, yeah. Just to check, yeah, seems to be still going. And he's sitting there, he's like counting bullets of the ballista thing, and I will say, I do appreciate, I've seen too many movies that try to convey that someone is firing a fully automatic weapon and extremely dangerous without actually showing us people being hit. And yeah, it's bloodless PG-13 deaths here, but we do see people being hit. We get why this is a difficult war, because there are machine guns, and it's I mean, I don't even. What? I'm not getting a nosebleed, am I? There's a machine gun nest in the Third Crusade. I'm okay. I'm gonna be okay. And then the running around, and the bows are raised like they're rifles. I get it, when right before you fire your bow, you've got you've got it raised, but you don't walk around with it constantly raised as you would if you were holding a rifle. Just I mean, is there footage of Taron Egerton, like, in his trailer, like, recording on this, like, really crappy camera? He's like looking back to Jack, and he's like, "You gotta get me out of here. This is I thought this movie's called Robin Hood. They say it's set during the Third Crusade, but they've got me running around holding my bow and arrow like it's an assault rifle. I'm not recording. Covering and getting in, dragged out of there and having like some kind of mind altering procedure or substance so that he could get back into the mind space where you run around with the, I mean, the parody writes itself. If you showed this, if I didn't know that this was supposed to be a straight movie, if you told me, if you showed this to me, I wouldn't, you know, I don't mean straight as in, you know, versus gay. I mean, like in straight man, like, you know, versus, as in to be taken seriously. I would assume that it was supposed to be a send-up of like recent trends in action movies. I mean, just yeah. I mean, they're making it real easy on Salzburg. And there's like, you know, take cover, which is just, that wasn't a thing back then. That was not, you don't. Back then it was fairly simple, you know, you just, there was, they didn't have the kind of, but yeah, I mean, yeah, they probably, like, the people making it were like, the people watching this are going to be like 13-year-olds who play Counter-Strike and watch like current war films. Yeah, we better throw them a bone. And the, you know, the ambush is also this very modern, and you've got this rock music, and there's the, we can't leave him behind, because now it's, yeah, it's just, it's full on a war movie. You know, for these, I don't know, 10 minutes of movie, it's just a straight up war movie. It's, there's nothing, like, I mean, one of them says like, let's finish this off so that Robin can get home to his girlfriend, and then he's immediately hit, and I was like, so that's like a parody of the thing where the guy will show the others a picture of his girlfriend go around, and then he'll be killed not long after. So yeah, and the, you know, we gotta go. You know, they send the lit arrow flare thing, and then the catapults start throwing rocks at the walls, and it's like explosions, and the camera shakes, and they're like, ah, you know, and they're running, and it's just. I mean, this is just like, maybe this would make a lot more sense. Maybe what happened was that someone was writing a script, and like they got maybe halfway there, and then they realized, well, this is basically like a Robin Hood story. Ah, crap, I guess that means I gotta set it back then instead of the current day setting that I was planning. You know what? No one's gonna notice. And we noticed. Maybe it's like, do you ever get the feeling that some of the people out there making movies are just like, they just want to make sure that the people watching the movies are actually awake? Like, it just, you know, yeah. And you know, and then we see them abusing the Muslim prisoners, which, again, I really appreciate when these movies actually put, you know, that was unfortunately true. The during the Crusades, the Christians did a lot of really awful things, and including just some of their own people. And yeah, you know, I appreciate when they show this, yeah, these kinds of abuses that really. And let's see, yeah, and then we have, you know, Robin's trying but failing to save Salim, John's son, and, you know, you've got the riot, and some of the Muslims escape. You know, the guy of Gisborne. I appreciate that Robin just straight up calls him Giz. I mean, nicknames are probably a newer thing than that, but I mean, well, I guess yeah, they're both nobles. Or is Gisborne even in this one? I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be in the legend. Anyway, was there historical? Whatever. Yeah, just I mean, if someone you were spending a lot of time with and had to get their attention very quickly, and their full name and title was Guy of Gisborne, you'd probably shorten it to Giz. And you know, he wounds Robin for trying to save a Muslim, and he gets sent home. And it's this thing of, it's this thing of, if you weren't a lord, I would have killed you, and that is true. That is something we have known about Robin for centuries. Robin of Locksley is lord. Yeah. And he comes back, and and maybe it was said before this point, but yeah, when he comes back and he's like, what happened to, that's when I realize, at least some of the time, when he says Marion, it comes out Marianne. I mean, he's got the accent, so that's why. And I'm sorry, that's priceless to me. I can't. Where's the professor? Where's Gilligan? Just yeah. And Tim Minchin is like, this is not gonna end well, and like, it didn't even start well. And also, seriously, could that have been any more stock? Like, oh, you're back. I have things to tell you, and maybe it might be good to try to gently break the news and just say, I thought that Robin would like run up and like try to kiss Marianne or something, and for her to push him away, and then Will steps in, Cyclops style. But just before Robin runs, run, tell him Marianne is no longer single. Just she's not with you anymore. She's not waiting for you. Wasn't there also a bit where, like, after he's told, they said you were dead, he's like, you said you'd wait for me. Wait, what? She thought you were dead. What was she supposed to do? Just like go full, Romeo and Juliet, and like just yeah. I think she did call him on that one though. But anyway, and we see the mines where everything is just complete misery, and they're taking the coal out, they're cleaning it, that's how it's clean coal, and yeah. And apparently seeing Marianne with Will makes Robin nearly throw up. That's wild. I mean, maybe it's supposed to be because the mines are so disgusting, but if that's the case, then the movie did not convey that well at all. That's a level of wow. And then John shows up, and he's like, I've seen war before, and it's always about rich people making themselves richer at the expense of the weak and powerless and such. And he's like, but I've only one hand. You know, I need someone like you know. And I'm just like, no, what you mean is you're an African American Muslim character. You need a white guy who's Christian. You know, that's the real. If this is almost like, why isn't Hope the one using the Ant-Man suit? You know, it's really, if they hadn't cut off John's hand, we would have been like, why isn't he the one going? I mean, the only thing you could at all argue is that John couldn't pass as noble, so he would need Robin to do the Bruce Wayne thing. But she's clearly better. Anyway, I think I saw like someone said, you know, oh, he's got like years of training, and, you know, why does he need Jamie Foxx? Well, to be fair, Jamie Foxx, you know, the Moors kicked their asses in the, you know, in just the one fight we see, and presumably a bunch of others. It makes perfect sense that that John can teach him new things based on that scene. I mean, the more ridiculous thing is the machine gun. Yeah, it's not the. There's a machine gun ballista, and an air support, explosive, stone throwing catapult in this movie. I mean, I knew that there was gonna be stuff with bows and arrows where it fires at like the rate of a semi-automatic pistol or rifle or something. I guess I really should have seen coming that they weren't gonna stop there. But I didn't. I was not prepared. And the sheriff stands up in front of everyone and says, they hate us. They hate our freedom. They hate our religion. They hate our culture. And they're coming here. They're going to be right outside the gates. Oh my god. What is this? What even is this? Again. Are we sure this is not satire? Because that's just, I mean, I appreciate that the villain is the one firing off this, again, I made some notes, this political rhetoric with, like, you know, anti-immigration, xenophobia. The scene is a Trump rally. There's even protesters. I was half expecting the sheriff to be like, oh, get that, you know, get Marion out of here on a stretcher, and, you know, if you see Will trying to throw a tomato, knock the crap out. Why don't you, I will pay your legal bills. At least it's not Peppermint. Peppermint was on Trump's side. And then there's this thing of, like, you know, Tim gets up. I think I'm just gonna call him Tim. Tim and Tim Minchin rather than Friar Tuck, but whatever. Dan said that he felt like they had probably wanted to get Simon Pegg, but then for budgetary reasons they got Tim Minchin instead. Maybe. Excuse me. I hadn't really thought of it. Excuse me. I quite liked him in the role, which, you know, Dan did as well, but I don't necessarily get the sense that he was originally supposed to be played by Simon Pegg. But anyway, you know, he gets up in front of him and he was like, well, I mean, Loxley hasn't voted. And it's like, well, I mean, the and he's so bad at hiding, like, there's someone saw him. I can't say who saw him because there's a confidentiality with and just yeah, and it's this, yeah, the voting for or against the war effort, and the money, power. And I feel like Dan perfectly covered the whole thing with, Robin can't pronounce John's real name right, and yeah. And I was also sitting there like, that gag was very funny 21 years ago in The Fifth Element. Are we seriously still doing this? Are we really still having gags where, like, oh wow, that whole thing's your name, huh? Can you like shorten it and just yeah. Boom. I understand boom. And yeah, there's the thing when you have to lie to Marianne. She can't know about the plan, and it won't be safe for the she'll be killed as well. And it's like, Dan points out they're also doing this other thing, and I feel like maybe, again, I could be completely way off, but I feel like maybe the script was mostly done, and then near the end, when the the writing has gotten to, okay, and then Robin gets the documents and leaves, and Tim Minchin translates them, and he brings up, oh, Marianne and Will would, probably like to be in on this, and then either the writers or like someone else came up and pointed out, Will and Marianne have done absolutely nothing up to this point, and not to mention, to mention, is it possible to give them just a little bit of something to do, and then they're like, I don't want to rewrite what I already wrote. Can they be doing something off screen maybe, and I'll take an early lunch and ponder existence while staring wistfully off into space. Okay, they're also doing a thing, and Tim grabs the keys and gets into the documents, and then he translates them, and Marianne was the one who actually stole them, wasn't she? And then she was like, I have to get these to someone I can trust. Will was seriously, well, this looks like very incriminating evidence against the sheriff. You know what? I think I'm just going to hand them over to the sheriff and ask, what are you doing with this? Because I'm sure he's just that honest and trustworthy of a person. That's going to go well. That is definitely, and yeah, so they were like, okay, I guess instead of Robin getting those documents, it can be Tim Minchin and Marianne who do. And yeah, because it would have been very easy, it would have not taken very much to fit in that they were working together all along. But yeah. And John, you got the training thing. He's like, come on, shoot me. Stop trying to shoot me and shoot me. We got the training montage. I mean, Jamie Foxx being like all intense is still fun, even if the role and the writing and the movie aren't necessarily up to it as good. And the Robin actually gives to the sheriff for once, and to get into his good graces. And this of course has the stereotype, the hero has to treat the person he loves really badly, and he can't tell him why, and just when Will and Marianne were like together, and Marianne was like looking, oh, what about the Robin? Was Will's junk on fire, or was no, it was like a thing that he had, and it just for a second looked like, yeah. And let's see, and after being robbed, Tuck brings his ass into town. Everyone laughing behind their hands. And, the sheriff is like, I won't rest until I've drowned that thief in a cage with 4 kittens and a bag of water. And they start calling him the Hood. And they're all gathered together. He's like, leave us. And then one guy, Pembroke, ow! He's a lot of fun in this movie. He has a real energy and passion to his, And we're told his backstory about how he grew up being disciplined by the fathers of the lords, and Robin's like wants a bake. He wants a seat at the big boys' table. And did I hear it right? Did John actually say this horse has a nice ass? Wow. And Robin goes all Cape Fear and how he gets into the count room, and you've got the slow-mo arrow gunfire. I will say, I was surprised that scene ended with him not getting out without getting any coin. I thought that it was gonna be, that he would get a bunch, but so I appreciate the surprise there, and but we got their attention, and people start hanging hoods on walls, and the cardinal is coming because of the Hood, the audacity of his. And Commander Gisborne is back. That's also something I appreciate. I didn't realize we were going to see him again. And this movie has fun villains. The Cardinal, the Sheriff, eventually Will, and Gisborne. They're all fun villains. And then we have the party. There are so many shots of rich people laughing in such a short space of time, like with Robin and Marianne making out at the start of the movie. Some part, it felt like it went on forever, and it's like, you're allowed, you don't have to use every single good take. You know that, right? If you have a specific angle or a specific take where you're like, I really don't want to cut this. You kind of are supposed to, if it would improve the film. And these two parts, like, did the music video accidentally get edited into the film? Because you're not supposed to have that many shots of the exact same thing happening in like if they had like juxtaposed it with some. I mean, I guess they kind of did. No, there was just, I'm sorry, there were too many. It was definitely more than, yeah. And Robin, to get close enough to the cardinal, which again Dan points out, oh wow, he managed to be told just the exact like piece of information. Robin like grabs Tuck and pushes him in and says, "Oh, this guy's a thief," and he defrocks Tuck, and I love the joy on the cardinal with like, "You can't do this." I can, and I am, and I do it joy. It was great joy, something like that. And the let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Robin is like, I don't want some random person to have their life destroyed by me accusing them of being a thief. But I mean, if he did grab like some peasant and shoved them in there and said, "I caught this person stealing," that peasant saying like, I mean, I get. I'm not saying it would be ethically right to pick some random person. Why didn't he pick a guard? Why didn't he like, smack a guard in the head from behind to knock him out? Take off the guard stuff, and then just shove him in, and he'd be like, "No, but I'm a guard," and Rob'd be like, "No, he's a thief. Look, I found this key on him," or something, But instead, it's just Tuck is the one who gets screwed. And there's the thing, in 4 days we sail the money that you and I, Sheriff and Cardinal, will be able to take the power from the king. I appreciate that they managed to. I mean, let's see, in the when you go back to earlier versions, it's Prince John wants to take full power. He wants to become king while the real king is away. This one never mentions a prince or a king, unless I'm terribly mistaken. And a specific one, I mean. Obviously there is some. Anyway. And in the 1991 movie, in the 2010 movie, and in this movie, each time it's a different take on how, taking power from the. And when Christian Grey is like, Marianne, I mean, come on, this is, I can't believe it is, I'm just waiting for him to like, spank her or talk about, my mother, the crack whore. And then Marianne says, "You're afraid," to Will. The cardinal literally just got done saying that to the sheriff. It's just, yeah, it's the Batman Begins kind of thing going on. Like, yeah, criminals aren't complicated. And and then we see the commander starts to steal from the poor. And Little John fights this hopeless fight against a bunch of soldiers. And then I think the sheriff is like, human beings are the only, he says humans fear death and the finality of it. And the finality of death. I think is probably correct about the finality aspect, but all living things fear death. That's, except maybe lemmings. They have yeah, lemmings do still. It's just it's when there's overpopulation that they, the, animals have a self-preservation drive. So I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be, the movie isn't saying it, just the character's stupid or something. And, the sheriff is very clearly an atheist, it's, no God, how lonely, how freeing. And, the sheriff is like telling John, oh, Azim begged, and then he's like, the brain actually continues working after you cut someone's head off, which is like, what breed of nonsense Resident Evil stuff keeps growing on your body after you die kind of garbage dialogue is this? So humans are like the chicken that'll run around with it, just what were they on when they wrote this? And there's Will and Robin do these political speeches, and Marianne speaks for Robin, but then gets Will and Robin to work together, or gets Will to work with Robin rather. And there's this brief bit where Robin is like, I thought you were just a regular friar, and Tim is like, briefly, like a little, blushing kind of thing, and then it just cuts, and I was like, there's something missing there. Did Tim mention like drop an F-bomb or something? Because that was a very weird cut, and I feel like they could have just not had Robin say anything specific there at all, but whatever. It was an amusing little, okay, why'd they cut that? And then they're like mass producing hoods a la the Guy Fawkes mask in V for Vendetta, and just, and you've got the crowd walking, you've got Molotov cocktails, and the guards are beating up the crowd, and Robin gets shot in the chest with an arrow. Stop fighting, here I am. And let's see. Yeah, and I'm not commenting on everything. I thought that just to briefly, I thought it had a good amount of action, and I personally didn't really have trouble following it, but it does move very fast, and I'm not saying that the type of action is for everyone. But yeah, they're near the end, we realize the Cardinal's just going to find a new sheriff, and it's Will as Two-Face, and those were those notes. 44 minutes, that's considerably less than. So anyway, notes taken, before watching. Excuse me. And now, before watching this, I rewatched The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938, Robin the Prince of Thieves from 1901, and the 2010 Robin Hood. The first two I own, the third the library had. I have watched some of the versions, but not recently. I have watched the Fox one by Disney dozens of times when I was a kid, not since. Haven't watched the Guy Ritchie King Arthur. Now, let's see. The yeah, the I already mentioned this in another video, but yeah, I'm gonna restate. The teaser for the movie, which came out, let's see, the 3rd of the 5th this year, it applies a John Woo sensibility to the legend. The bow firing accurately as fast as a semi-automatic pistol is ridiculous. And the trailer, other parts of the trailer made me think of the Thief game series, and in later trailers, he's not firing arrows as fast, but according to IMDb, let's see. Yeah, concerning that some of this has been contested, I'm just going to say YouTube sensation Lars Andersen of Denmark was hired to teach the cast archery. And yeah, the IMDb thing, when I copied it at least, maybe it's been changed. Yeah, it goes on to say that some of the stuff Robin does is also stuff that the Lars taught, which is apparently supposed to be an ancient technique, which I've heard others say that it's not this ancient technique. Lars Andersen and his claims appear to be somewhat controversial. Apparently some shots and filming arrow took 14 takes to get. In that case, it would hardly be something you could rely on in a real situation. Isn't there a saying like someone who fires projectiles for a living is only as good as his worst shot? I'm not saying that the movie has to be accurate to real life, but if you're going to have something that is supposedly based on a real life thing, maybe best to choose something that has been proven to be completely accurate. For example, in The Dark Knight, sonar is used as a reliable tool. There are points about how it is perhaps contrived in that version, but I haven't heard any credible argument that sonar as a tool is unreliable. So just, yeah, I think they just, yeah, someone making the movie saw those videos and didn't want to dive any deeper. They just thought that will look cool on the big screen as well. And other notes from the teaser. I don't remember the last time a Robin Hood movie had Robin hide his identity rather than people simply knowing that Robin of Locksley, the nobleman, was now an outlaw. And I was worried that the movie might play like the audience don't know at first. I'm really relieved that we do know from right away, because in the teaser, at first it pretends like the audience doesn't know that's, and again, that's just, you know what, machine gun ballistas, air support, catapults, that I can accept, but everyone knows that Robin of Locksley is Robin Hood. Anyway, I was wondering if it was like an inspiration from Zorro, and in the trailer, I'm almost 100% certain this isn't a movie, and it also really wouldn't have fit in the movie. There's this bit with, Marianne about, Robin, about the Hood, sorry. Why, so you're a fan. He has his good qualities. He's not you. And yeah, and in the teaser, they don't even give him a name. They just refer to him as the Thief, which is basically also what they do in the movie, and sometimes the Hood, or what's under the hood or such. But checking Hood or the Hood is a name used by several other characters, but those are not characters in this universe. So. And let's see. Yeah, and Taron Egerton, unlike some other Robin Hoods, can speak with an English accent. And some of the trailers kind of make it seem like there might be like a heist. And I was thinking, oh, we may be right near the end, but then, well, I mean, I guess it's not very far from the end, but the heist, all they do is like, bump into that guy and then grab the key, and then she uses the key and gets the document. That's it. Again, maybe someone was like, ah, man, I know you're like 95% done with this script, but could you possibly write in like a heist scene? Because that's, Widows is coming out soon, so let's please, Widows is going to come out close to when our movie comes out, so can you put in a heist scene? It's just, yeah. And it's there so they can put it in the trailer, is almost what it seems like. And then, in the final trailer from 3rd of 10th, Friar Tuck specifically says he calls the thief Robin Hood. Personally, I would suspect anyone named Robin if I knew the thief called himself Robin. And then they have, they make fun of the disguise, saying Marianne could clearly see through it, which that works so well for the Green Lantern movie. And it's like, in the actual scene in the movie, I was like, put the mask back on him, put the mask back on him. Gisborne, part of the scene, Gisborne is right next to them. I get that Marianne knows that it's not. Marianne can see through the disguise, but that doesn't mean everyone. He literally says it fooled everybody else, so put it back on. It's just, yeah. And let's see. Yeah, I was wondering if the sheriff would be the villain Robin fights for Marion, or if a guy, Guy Gisborne, like 1938 version. And the sheriff make it seem like the sheriff is the main villain, and yeah, was it Gisborne who locked her in the thing and then starts riding away? I've actually already forgotten who did that. And 1938 Robin Hood is constantly smiling, cheery, so are his merry men, hence the term merry. Even, in fact, especially when someone else makes them look silly, knock them, throw them into water. And, to a lesser degree, something like, that is in the 91 and 2010 versions, and it is very true to the legend. I remember distinctly from reading the books as a kid. And really, yeah, this version of Robin will smile and laugh also. And yeah, and in the legend, in the Legend 1938 and 1991 movies, Robin will make the bad guys, as well as the named allies and allies to be, look silly, and they do the same to him. Now, I guess in this you could say that he makes Tuck look silly. Yeah, I guess that's about it. I think I may also go into it more later, but there was kind of supposed to be romance in this movie, right? I mean, we were supposed to. I didn't really feel like I feel like both actors do try to sell it, but I just didn't really feel like it just didn't quite work. Now, in a documentary on the 2-disc special edition DVD of The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938, it's pointed out by someone who knows that gradually over time the Robin Hood legends evolved to include elements that were deemed necessary. He didn't always steal from the rich and give to the poor. He wasn't always a nobleman. He wasn't always in a romantic relationship with Maid Marian. Since watching that documentary, I've tried to notice how the different film versions of Robin Hood reflect when they were made, what was considered appealing at the time. Obviously, you can do this with movies just made at that time, not about a specific figure whose movies and stories are retold over and over. But with Robin Hood, you can see what elements made it into the films from the books that we read about Robin Hood when we were children, which contain the books containing the most recent printed versions. Where, 1991 Robin Hood is brooding, his clothes are not so colorful. 2010 Robin Hood is gritty and realistic. So, I was interested in seeing how this one interprets the character. And based on trailers, definitely has inspiration from what's popular today, or has been fairly recently. He swings on ropes that we're used to, and has been in the Pirates of the Caribbean films. And, the Legends also. I believe both Robin Hood and classic pirate movies are called swashbucklers, but I've just heard that. I don't know what apparently swashbuckler is like a word, like you can break it down and it makes sense. Like there are buckles and you can swash them, which just sounds like, if I didn't know that it meant something with pirates and Robin Hood and such, and you just said, oh hey, have you heard about this swashbuckler thing? I wouldn't think it was some kind of action-adventure thing. I would think it was some kind of weird internet thing. Like, I don't know if it would necessarily be pornographic, but it would probably be some kind of, like, something parents didn't want their kids to look at. Don't watch that man getting his swashbuckled. And, the character's kind of a smartass, as teenage heroes can be today. Han Solo inspired, perhaps. And, the actor Taron Egerton is known for, the Kingsman films, where he is this, And there's all about revolution, about how he's inspiring people, much like the Hunger Games. And he wears something in dark leather that looks similar to some of what Katniss wears. And I was wondering if the heist stuff would be similar to Ocean's 11 movies. I do think that would have been. I would have thought it was quite priceless if literally, like during that scene, suddenly it just goes full Ocean's 11, and we just have the voiceover of Tuck and Marianne, and these brief and it was also it was the most obvious thing. Like Tuck bumps in, like this is the guy, and this is Tuck, and he bumps into him, and then he quickly grabs the keys whilst looking at him and being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and then the guy's like, "Just move," and then moves, and there you go. It was just, they weren't even trying. Again, either the heist stuff was like done by people who don't know very much about heists, maybe don't care very much about heists. Maybe it was just written in and filmed at the last moment. I don't know. Now, and I was wondering if there's going to be superhero origin stuff, since those are real popular right now. Now, 1938, Robin Hood's villains aren't really rapey. They threaten to execute Maid Marian for something she didn't do, but there's no threat of an arranged marriage. Anyone has a lot of rape stuff, not only towards her, and arranged marriage. Some rape stuff, not only towards her, and arranged marriage in 2010. And let's see, in 91, Marion very briefly fights. In 2010, Marion fights a little. Did she fight in this? She took part in action scene stuff, at least a little. I'm not sure she fought. But that was also, Dan pointed out, everyone uses crossbows and bows. No one uses swords in this movie. And if you had a crossbow or a bow that was like automatic, you'd probably choose that over a sword. Who's gonna bring a sword to a AK-47 fight? And it's like, did they play medieval and think it was just historical fiction? Is that what happened? Because yes, that does have a fully automatic crossbow, but it also has some things that are even more obviously definitely not real. Anyway, I was wondering if this was maybe gonna have sexual assault, rape stuff because of the very necessary Me Too movement. Well, like the bad guys would be in part defined by how they mistreat women. The good guys believe the women who accuse their rapists. There wasn't really a lot of that. And so, moving on to some of the characters. Little John played by Jamie Foxx, and he's a more like Morgan Freeman's Azim. Was that what what his son was named? Or was it Nazim in this? I completely forgot that the name was... Let me just real quick see if I can't find. Should be Salim and Azim, yeah. Sorry, I'm not 100% awake right now. As far as I can tell, neither actor is actually Muslim in real life, and they are not Middle Eastern, because there are limits to how far Hollywood feels they need to go. And the trailers show him training Robin, and it seems like he's the one who convinces him to do the Robin from the rich given to the poor thing. And Frychuk played by Tim Minchin. I mean, the man is renowned for his views on the Christian church. This is only the second time he acts in a movie, and the movie's PG-13, so a good chunk of the material he's famous for definitely can't be in uncensored form in this. Regardless, I absolutely love his music, his brutal Australian style of comedy. You know, seriously, he's deservedly ruthless on the pedo-protecting Pope. He mocks Christian faith in a very anti-theist manner, lots of jokes about gays and bis, also about sexual perversity, including entire songs dedicated to it. He does, of course he does care deeply about justice for the oppressed, so that part makes sense, but literally when they were like, oh, Cardinals coming here because and Tim Minchin like responds to that, I was like half expecting him to go like, is there any chance the Pope might show up, because I have this little ditty written about him that I don't think he would. I think you should hear it at least once, that's all I'm saying. I really liked him a lot in this. And considering that, like, one of the only other things he's in this is that thing that he wrote. I haven't watched the movie itself, but he wrote that song, it was called Drowned, specifically for that, which made me a little frustrated that there is not a Tim Minchin song made about this movie. If there is, I haven't heard it, but that I would really love for there to be a very Tim Minchin song about something in this. That would be very, very funny. And Will Scarlet is played by Christian Grey. I mean, I realize the actor has done other stuff, but this is the role that's going to define him for some time. Besides, the last of those movies apparently came out this same year. It's probably not been longer. Anyway, it's not like there's a lot of distance between them. And yeah, the moment that he's like, Marianne, you're frustrating me, just I immediately start like, I haven't watched those movies. I hope I never will. But I have watched Dan Olsen's analyses on the first two. I meant to watch the third, but I ran out of time today. And yeah, it's just really funny to me that they would hire, yeah. And yeah, I mean, there are a few things in this movie that are very much like when you see clips of those three movies. Now, in the 1991 movie, Will has an attitude, dislikes Robin, not in the 1938 movie. In this, there's also some. And Maid Marianne is... I'm sorry, I'm going to keep calling her... I'm going to keep pronouncing it like that because that is hilarious to me. I cannot believe that they did not make sure Taryn did not pronounce it like that at all in the movie because it's so distracting. I realize that the names are connected. It's all connected. But the fact that he straight up pronounces it Marianne. Yeah. But yeah, Maid Marianne is played by Eve Hewson, whose full name of Memphis Eve Sunny Day Hewson makes a strong case for tighter laws on what you can legally name your child. Who names their child? Oh, her father's U2's Bono. Yeah, that actually explains a lot. Parents apparently didn't want her acting or otherwise performing. And like the 1991 version, this appears to have no Prince John. You know, in that movie, the idea of stealing the crown was something the sheriff was trying to do by marrying royalty, Maid Marianne. And then in this, it's to destabilize England by funding the Muslim troops. Yeah, I forget if it was Dan or his girlfriend. I forget which of them pointed out, the idea that England's wealth at that time would be, comparable to, but they needed something. And that actually, I mean, the idea that the bad guy is like taking money out of your pocket and like firing you and making your life really bad for you so that he can help the evil Muslims come in from another country. I mean, that's what the Republicans are actually saying about Democrats. That's, yeah. I don't think they really thought thought through the political stuff they were doing here. Now, the script is the first ever for two of the guys, and the first, except for a short called Strawman from 2010. And it's the director's feature debut. He usually does TV, and I was wondering if you could tell in like pacing and scope. Honestly, yeah, the pacing's probably at least a little off, but I feel like the scope fit. Yeah. And his TV work is especially comedy, drama, and crime drama mystery. And I don't know if this is still the idea, but at least originally this was supposed to serve as the first movie in a Robin Hood shared cinematic universe. So one movie with all the major Robin Hood characters, and then each of them would get a solo movie down the line. I sincerely doubt there is an audience for that, or rather an audience large enough that they could fund big blockbuster movies off ticket sales of said audience. So does that mean that if this movie does well enough, we're gonna get a Tim Minchin solo Friar Tuck movie? Are we gonna get like another a movie that's entirely focused on John? I mean, both of those I would watch, and if they like did one with like Ben Mendelsohn's sheriff, I would basically have to be a prequel or a midquel. But yeah, and you know what? If they make it, I will watch it. But it's still a ridiculous idea to try to make something like that, because cinematic universes are popular right now. I mean, you can do it with like superhero stories when you have a bunch of different characters that you can headline movies. If they had tried to make an Avengers movie every year or every couple of years, like they used to do, like with the X-Men movies, of course they're not all gonna turn out great, but if you have a plan like Feige has, yeah. But the idea of if you make them, I will watch them. You have my attention. And in the US, this premiered, let's see, the 21st. 21st of 11th. And on the 28th, it's still, the Wikipedia page did not have the plot written out. I'd never seen it take this long, but by 29th, it had been added, so sometimes between those. I was wondering if this was actually going to show any of the Crusades, because politically that is problematic. I realize that right now the White House stance on the Middle East is that by definition people are dangerous terrorists or inferior to white Americans, with the notable exception of the ones giving oil and money to the US, in which case they can literally murder a reporter and face no consequences. But it would probably be difficult to show the Crusades, where Robin and King Richard are heroes, according to legend, without showing Muslims as inherently bad guys, which they very obviously are not. And I was wondering, early on, it kind of seems like it's siding with the Christians against the Muslims. But then, we also do see, Steve Duscey, the couldn't help it. The John is clearly a very honorable character, and you see the Christians abusing, Muslims. And let's see. Now, in 1991 and 1938, Robin and his merry men hide in the forest, and they swing from trees to stop money transports. That doesn't really happen here. In this, it's mostly static money places that he goes into and robs. Now, in the 1991 movie, Robin and his merry men are attacked in the woods. The bad guys find their hiding place. It's a good reversal of how usually the merry men can attack using guerrilla methods. You can't do that when you're attacked at your base and you didn't expect an attack at all. And you've got Celts attacking. In that movie, they also use gunpowder, which is also unusual. And he's in the climactic scene. There's also hanging. And others have already said, I'm not sure I have much to add about the ridiculous costumes and clothes in this. Now, the DVD of the 2010 Robin Hood movie is 13 minutes of movie deleted scenes, and you can watch them with or without commentary. Pretty good stuff. And the DVD is the director's cut, so it has 16 additional minutes not seen in theaters. 2 hours and 29 and a half minutes long. Now, some notes on that movie. Robin is mildly abusive of Marion, maybe more than mildly. I couldn't see any reason for that. There's no reason, there's no reason that would make it okay. But I'm saying I couldn't even see anything that he, anyway, it came off as misogynist. I like if she had said or done something to him that he was getting revenge for or something. Now, and the merry men dance and or sing and or play instruments 4 or 5 times in the movie, so that fits with the tone of the legends, but it's still colorless and gritty when the strengths of Robin Hood are in it being so colorful. And it's basically an origin story. Everything that happens in it happens before the legends begin, which, this is also essentially an origin story. And also a sort of superhero origin story thing. Now, the 1938 and 1991 movies are supposed to represent the legends, and some evil church representatives yeah, in all 4 of these movies. And 2010 movie admits that the British did some truly evil actions during the Crusades, and this does as well. Now, on The Daily Show, a host made a joke. Sorry, the host, again, not entirely awake here, made a joke about if your business doesn't make money, it's a charity or Trump is running it. I would add that if it's a charity and it's earning money, that means it's a scam and Trump is running it. And a Washington Post reporter just conducted an interview with Trump, and I have to say, I think it was very rude to keep going rather than rush the man to the hospital once he clearly had a stroke. I mean, there's being bad at expressing yourself, and then there's just being truly incoherent. I'm not talking about views, I'm talking about words. The words, the sentences, he's not making any sense. And the quotes just kept coming. I mean, did he himself think that what he said was at all comprehensible? And Elle O'Brien just uploaded another of her excellent collaborations with Botnik. I've seen everything put up on, Reddit's r/Botnik and, botnik.org, and I love it all. I love the music. Yeah, just what Elle puts up is some of my absolute favorite stuff. The cooking shows, the ASMR, and now the Bob Ross makeup tutorial. The combination of her performing it so naturally, as if what she is saying is making perfect sense, with the Botnik writing, part of its genius lying in how it balances nonsense with almost making sense, just absolutely perfect. In general, I think the performances, the reading, the reading aloud stuff and such are some of the best. And yeah, the review of the Star Wars movie, the Harry Potter chapter, yeah. Now, that brings us to the final segment. Oops, that's wrong. IMDb, Wikipedia, and critic sites. Is this thing... I think this thing is seriously already starting to die out. Unreal. Now, I last updated this before going to the movie theater, so it may have changed since then. But then, at the time, the tomato meter was at 16%, with an average rating of 3.9 out of 10. 119 reviews, 100 of them rotten, with the consensus that Robin Hood robs from rich source material, but is ultimately just another poor attempt to needlessly gussy up a classic tale with amped up action and modern special effects. And the audience score is 48% liked it, with an average rating of 2.9 out of 5 and 1,551 ratings. I think I've said it before, but I do really appreciate when they do plays on words like that. Robin Hood robs from rich, and you've got poor in there. Yeah. And yeah, again, if this guy does more action movies, maybe I'll watch, and I would definitely know that, okay, the action's probably going to be entertaining. But and that is something that's not in all of these. So now, I'm not going to read aloud every single some of these I will just briefly reread and see if there's stuff I want to highlight. But let's start with critics reviews. Now, I think, yeah, I tried to make sure to mark certain reviews that I definitely wanted to go into. Yeah. Yeah, this one guy says, Robin Hood ends up transforming itself into a boring and flavorless exercise in updating a story. And yeah, that's pretty well put. He gave it a 4 out of 10 as far as I can tell. Now, the rebels look like they just walked out of an Abercrombie and Fitch advertisement. Robin's diamond stitch quilted jacket looks like an outerwear you would find in Uniqlo, if that's how I pronounce that. I don't know clothes stores. A dumbly anachronistic action adventure that you will never believe was not directed by Guy Ritchie and written by 12-year-olds. Well, this didn't work out at all. They are trying too hard to modernize this. They start treating the bow and arrows like M16s. And yeah, several people say it's very Guy Ritchie. I mean, I haven't watched the most recent. I mean, I can kind of see what they mean about that. Yeah. Thinking about it, I can definitely see a Guy Ritchie stylization. I already noticed the stylization, I just hadn't quite realized how Guy Ritchie it is, but yeah. Now, the competent cast is rendered powerless by a film that refuses to embrace its own inherent campiness, and I think that's, yeah. Now, let's see. Excuse me. In the end, this is an overacted, overstyled comedy and therefore quite enjoyable. The action scenes are spectacular. ... The movie is not unpleasant, but it is very, very, very dumb. It's so dumb that it will be good 20 or so years before anyone dares to make a Robin Hood movie again, which really sucks because the Robin Hood story is legitimately awesome. And that really, I mean, 9 years passed. 19, holy crap. 19 years passed between the Costner and the Crow versions. And then 8 years between Crow and this. Yeah. That really is wild. Now, let's see. While it plays fast and loose with loaded political iconography, this Robin Hood has brought a whole new dimension to this age-old tale. And let's see. Costumes cover the gamut from the 1500s Elizabethan codpiece culture to current-day John Varvatos ensembles. Again, I don't know clothes. I don't care about clothes. Even the wardrobe is incomprehensible. That's rare. It plays like a fan fiction written by an edgelord teen who's seen The Dark Knight too many times and who knows what Anonymous is but doesn't understand it. Absolutely. That's very well put. Now, let's see. And then there is some fun to be had considering if you watch it on TNT 2 years from now. And right. This video is probably going to be a lot shorter than the various other recent ones. Hey, it's almost as if they're stealing our money and selling our head back to us by way of another thoughtless, capitalistic Robin Hood remount. And it's far from the first Robin Hood film. It almost certainly won't be the last, but it'll take a concerted effort from future generations to overtake it as the worst. Which, yeah, it is the worst. It is not just the worst Robin Hood movie, it is the worst, full stop. Period. End of sentence. Wow, this movie. This movie is fun for reasons that it didn't mean to be, but also for some reasons that it did. Excuse me. Medieval England is a Hunger Games dystopia viewed through a Guy Ritchie-style geezer prism that makes every line of dialogue sounds like the precursor to a punch-up in a kebab shop. Yeah. And let's see. Rarely has there been so much stuff happening on screen at the one time that amounts to so little. It's just noise you wish could be turned down. Trapped somewhere between the legit daring do of Robin's role in the Resistance and the movie's smirky attitude about the whole thing. Vastly messy and meandering in its whimsical wasteland, Robin Hood awkwardly strains for credibility and biting off more than it can chew in a toothless Bombastic action that has all the appeal of a dull arrow penetrating a stone wall. Wow. See, some people are born to write. They're just the way with words. Yeah, beautiful. Forget history. The opening narrations are utter ballads. Robin Hood intones. Forget everything you think you know. And while you're at it, forget pacing, character development, and general excitement. And let's see. Clumsy anachronisms abound, perhaps deliberately, though the film isn't nearly witty enough to carry them off, pull them off. It says carry them off. Never heard it phrased like that before. Robin Hood for the 21st century. I mean the 14th century. No, wait, the 23rd century, somewhere in a galaxy far away. Too many parallels and references weigh this down, and the jokes are sparse. Mendelssohn is good value as the Sheriff of Nottingham. Robin Hood is beyond saving, not because it reeks of cynicism, it does, but because it felt that it could get away with this, and that is unforgivable. Let's see. Several dueling shades of dull, this umpteenth retooling of the outlaw legend is desperate to convince viewers that Christopher Nolan had something to do with it. He didn't. The film is also pointedly but pointlessly anachronistic in a way that feels more lazy than whimsical, sometimes dressing its 1300s era characters in costumes that recall the Hunger Games. It's legitimately funny, not sure that was the intention. You could build a suspension bridge over the gap between what Robin Hood could have been and what it is. Worst Robin Hood ever. Changing the story completely, and not for the better, this is just another formulaic action film. Let's hope Hollywood leaves Robin Hood alone for the foreseeable future. It really, I mean, when you watch, I mean, the 1991 version is toned down and like gritty and brooding and such, but at least it is basically the Robin Hood story, you know, the Robin Hood stuff is in it. But the 2010 one and this one, yeah, I mean, these are barely Robin Hood stories. It's just that the people making it wanted to put something on screen, and then they realized, oh hey, if I put Robin Hood's name on it, maybe more people will pay attention. There's a place for bombastic, over-the-top popcorn movies that don't take themselves too seriously, but Robin Hood's humor isn't quite funny enough, and its serious content isn't quite serious enough. Arriving just in time to a place among the year's worst films, Robin Hood robs you of 2 hours. Teenager and Jamie Foxx go down the gullet with this toxic Thanksgiving turkey that definitely does not deserve a pardon. Again, beautiful. These people can really write. Even on a technical level, Robin Hood is impossible to follow anywhere. And the biggest winners by some distance are the wardrobe department, given license to recreate 13th century England by way of a window display at H&M. And What emerges is one never-ending mood swing of a movie, excitingly overblown 1 minute and erratically underdone the next. And yeah, that is part of it. That's one of the things with this movie. You never quite know what's next. You never know quite how stupid it's gonna get and how, yeah, it may be stupid, but it's never dull. Though in need of a stronger villain, Robin Hood is a rollicking good time with a blast of a cast. And Taron Egerton has plenty of swash in his buckle, and Jamie Foxx brings the audience to life. A bizarre, goofy, almost unbelievably awful reworking of the legend that belongs near the very bottom in the Robin Hood Hall of Shame, not just among the worst versions of the story, but the worst movies of the year. Of any year, it's fun to watch, but it is remarkably, yeah. Excuse me. And dopey but entertaining, this reboot of the classic fairy tale has its sights firmly set on 21st century. Yeah, set will delight in the frenzied action and eye-popping CGI. Robin Hood's shameless silliness only takes it so far. The film is frequently undermined by Autobathner's wobbly direction. The score feels cribbed, the action is video game superficial, and the costuming came directly from Forever 21. So desperate to be different, it sacrifices fun and coherence for blundering action and alarming stylistic tics, frequently feeling as if it's been adapted from a poor quality Batman video game. Page 11 of 22. Now, let's see what else we got. Unfortunately, it sets up a good target, only firing multiple arrows into its own foot. Foot. Everything is overwrought, but attitude can only go so far. The action effects and antics are meaningless without just a bit of originality in the script. Originality. Yet another attempt to bring the story of Robin Hood and his arrow-slinging myriad ways to the screen, big screen. This particular iteration fails to hit the bullseye. Bathurst and Company have created one of the better pure popcorn movies of the year, and that's a pretty impressive feat for a movie nobody really wanted in the first place. Say this and little else for the new Robin Hood movie. It's less of a self-serious slog than the last Robin Hood movie. And Robin steals from the poor and gives to the rich. And he gave it 0 out of 5. I'm genuinely amazed the Lionsgate didn't order a new ending based on the overwhelming sensation that this will not become a franchise, and how easy it would have been to alter the final scene to refit this entire disaster as a complete story. Yeah. Despite its early protests, Robin Hood is just another Robin Hood story, and a pretty monotonous and half-hearted one at that. I did want to briefly mention, it's not Robin that kills the sheriff, it's John, and John has more reason to hate him. What the sheriff took away from Robin was these several years of his life, and then the what's it called? His estate. But why was it just like abandoned if he took it over? Why didn't he have like people? I guess he removed everything of value from the estate. Yeah, whatever. And whereas the sheriff was directly responsible for the death of John's son, both in being in charge of, or at least later in the movie he's in charge of Gisborne, and also fighting to keep the war going. Now, ugly, garish, anachronistic, like a small mean child playing with matches, and completely lacking in anything Robin Hood-y. There's no fun, no romance, no virtue. Instead, bizarre aesthetics and even worse politics. And again, it's 0 out of 5. Amounts to a chilly and flavorless frappe of historical speculation, revisionist folklore, and every lazy action movie cliche ever written. 1 out of 4. Let's see. This Robin Hood looks like a lot of other things that audiences might have recognized, but it barely resembles the classic story on which it's based. The capper is an ending that induces slaps to the forehead, revealing all this confusion to be an origin story for a franchise this Robin Hood may, and if there is a God, should, never get to fulfill. That's also, I mean, there at the ending, why doesn't he shoot Will? Why does he just shoot the thing out of his hand? I mean, they did just kill the last sheriff. Why not kill the next one, the current one, as well? Yeah. Anyway. This Robin Hood is an arrow that never leaves the quiver. The incomprehensible, ostensibly hip new take on Robin Hood is an unmitigated disaster. It's simply another action movie, desperately hoping to spawn a franchise despite doing nothing to justify one. Excuse me. This movie steals, so much from Batman Begins that Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer should sue for copyright infringement. 4 out of 10. Excuse me. The delight taken in throwing film references in the blender of the shot of social consciousness can take a familiar tale only so far. 2 out of 4. Now, I think I'm going to try not to get into too many more of them unless they're ones that I have something to say about them on reading aloud. Let's see. I mean, also, if there's gonna be like a sequel that's, I mean, technically this whole thing is essentially an origin story for Robin Hood. There's stuff in the, yeah. And where is there really to go? I mean, he got into the coin counting room, even though he escaped penniless. When he escaped, he was penniless. He managed to get he managed to take out the sheriff, even though he's replaced. He unearthed this, what's it called? Conspiracy, and organized all these people. He and they carried out the heist, got into the documents. Where are they gonna go to top this? I guess if they go beyond Nottingham, maybe. But how far away from Nottingham can you get before it's just no longer a Robin Hood story? You know, it is a fairly local story, but yeah, I don't think they really thought through. Like, comparatively, by the end of the first of any of the solo movies in the MCU, by the end of the team up movies, you know, by the end of Avengers 1, there's places to go that they didn't go in, you know, so it's not like, yeah, I didn't feel like any of the MCU, like the some of the sequels feel like they go about as big as they can, but then the later sequels in the same series has felt like, okay, you managed to top it again. But one second, the third, what was I gonna say? But none of the, certainly no, yeah, they all managed to go far, but not go so far that there's no further to go for the next one. Now, let's see. Would it kill them to hitch themselves to one consistent anachronism? As I sat in the theater watching this lifeless would-be franchise starter, there was only one question swirling around in my mind. Who is this for? It's not mind-blowing, but it is fun. Non-super things made super isn't a new aesthetic, but it's at its most shameless in Robin Hood, superimposing raw essential parts stolen from Batman's background upon its source material. It really does feel like Robin Hood as Batman Begins if it were directed by Guy Ritchie. Page 13 out of 22. Excuse me. And as usual, you know, please, if you're at all interested, go to Metacritic.com, RottenTomatoes.com, and read the reviews. You know, I'm not gonna go into every single one. I guess that might more or less cover. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and scroll a little faster. This bloated, featureless, CGI-heavy movie is not so much stealing from the rich and giving to the poor as stealing from Guy Ritchie, Batman, Two-Face, and a few others, and not giving back all that much to the audience. And it plays like a fan fiction written by an... Oh, right, sorry. Sometimes the same review will be put on both RottenTomatoes.com and Metacritic.com, and I used to make sure that there was only one of those. But anyway, that brings us to the user reviews. Okay, let's see. I'm not gonna. And, on both of those sites, read both critic and user reviews. This film posits the Sheriff of Nottingham as a war profiteer responsible in large part for the Crusades in the Holy Land, and he forces the Nottingham peasantry to live in and around mines and industrial wasteland out of Mad Max. It is as overblown as it is preposterous. And yeah, it really, yeah. I mean, it's like a Cheney Rumsfeld kind of. It's unreal. And at times Director Otto Bathurst's approach feels schizophrenic, as if he followed a different studio mandate every other day on set. At times, the picture plays as a fairly standard Hollywood-style medieval adventure, albeit not a very impressively staged one. But then there are abrupt, bizarre lapses into Moulin Rouge-style anachronisms and badly outdated aesthetics in the vein of 300, including egregious overuse of computer-enhanced slow motion. Never finds a consistent stylistic rhythm, and let's see. And almost. Yeah. So hour and 53 minutes. So Stan Lee died recently, and I know I should have talked about it 2 weeks ago or a week ago, but I kept a lot of people have talked about how important he was, in general and to them personally, and this is not unique for me, but I do think that the more people who have personally experienced something that sometimes feels like you're the only one experiencing it, that can sometimes help people make people feel like they're less alone. And when I read Spider-Man at age 13, that was the first time that I'd read comic books before, but the first time I read Spider-Man at age 13, that was the first time I felt like somebody else had the same problems that I did, was struggling with some of the same things that I were. And that was something that Stan Lee did incredibly well with Spider-Man, with the X-Men, with various of the characters. I'm not gonna go too much into it, but I do really think that characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men. And of course, he didn't create all the X-Men, but he started it, and he created the first half a dozen or so. And yeah, there really is a lot there where you can really recognize yourself, even, you know, with it otherwise seeming like you're the only person who has the problems. I'm not saying that I thought that I was the person who had it worst in the world, not at all. But I did feel alone with my particular problems. And that covers that. Is there anything I haven't already said? The thing with how the movie definitely has a kind of Hunger Games thing going is absolutely, yeah, I think I saw it in a review somewhere, but I forgot to highlight that, so I didn't read it out now. But it's absurd. It's absurd to pose, to put, yeah, to present England as it was back then as some kind of dystopian Hunger Games style. You know, I get why they went for it, but it was, yeah. And the V for Vendetta stuff was also very obvious. You know, there's that part where he's like, I have to remind them they are my subjects, which is just like, you know, oh, so what you mean is you want to remind them, you know, we need to remind them why they need us. And the symbol, you know, here they hang hoods. In V for Vendetta, it's like spraying, yeah, on walls, and the way that all these regular people are just inspired by this one person who has a secret identity, who has, yeah. And let's see. Yeah, the Batman Begins thing, I mean, it's just that he never, you know, if Ra's al Ghul never turned evil, and if he was, and if the training took place, you know, in Gotham, excuse me. Now, it's one of those movies where, like, I had a lot of fun watching the action scenes as they happened, but now, you know, after finishing watching the movie, they kind of start to run together in my head a little bit, where, like, that isn't the case with the, you know, with MCU movies, at least only very rarely, I would say. You know, good, distinct action shouldn't start running together in your memory really quickly after watching the movie. You know, unless you're like really, really stressed or something, but otherwise it's not really a good sign. And let's see. I do think that, you know, basically they did an okay job of having, like, action scenes be situations that Robin Hood in other stories as well would find himself in, when they're escaping on the horse-drawn carriage, and when he's chased out of the coin counting room. You know, yeah. And I guess that covers everything, so just short of 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed watching as I enjoyed watching and recording, and I'll catch you next time.